Section 69 of Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leanne Fortune. Section 69. Fascinated as by a basilisk with 3 heads, I could not leave this clique. The ground near them seemed to hold my feet. The canopy of entwined trees held out shadow. The night whispered a pledge of protection, and an officious lamp flashed just one beam to show me an obscure, safe seat, and then vanished. Let me now briefly tell the reader all that, during the past dark fortnight, I have been silently gathering from rumour respecting the origin and the object of Monsieur Emmanuel's departure. The tale is short and not new. Its alpha is mammon, and its omega interest. If Madame Walravens was hideous as a Hindu idol, she seemed also to possess, in the estimation of these her votaries, an idol's consequence. The fact was, she had been rich, very rich, and though for the present without the command of money, she was likely one day to be rich again. At Basseterre, in Guadeloupe, she possessed a large estate, received in dowry on her marriage 60 years ago, sequestered since her husband's failure, but now, it was supposed, cleared of claim, and, if duly looked after by a competent agent of integrity, considered capable of being made, in a few years, largely productive. Père Silas took an interest in this prospective improvement for the sake of religion and the church, whereof Magliore Walravens was a devout daughter. Madame Beck, distantly related to the hunchback, and knowing her to be without family of her own, had long brooded over contingencies with a mother's calculating forethought, and harshly treated as she was by Madame Walravens, never ceased to court her for interest's sake. Madame Beck and the priest were thus, for money reasons, equally and sincerely interested in the nursing of the West Indian estate. But the distance was great, and the climate hazardous. The competent and upright agent wanted must be a devoted man. Just such a man had Madame Walravens retained for 20 years in her service, blighting his life and then living on him like an old fungus. Such a man had Père Silas trained, taught, and bound to him by the ties of gratitude, habit, and belief. Such a man Madame Beck knew, and could in some measure influence. "My pupil," said Père Silas, "if he remains in Europe, runs risk of apostasy, for he has become entangled with a heretic." Madame Beck made also her private comment, and preferred in her own breast her secret reason for desiring expatriation. The thing she could not obtain, she desired not another to win, rather would she destroy it. As to Madame Walravens, she wanted her money and her land, and knew Paul, if he liked, could make the best and faithfullest steward. So the 3 self-seekers banded and beset the one unselfish. They reasoned, they appealed, they implored. On his mercy they cast themselves. Into his hands they confidingly thrust their interests. They asked but 2 or 3 years of devotion. After that he should live for himself. One of the number, perhaps, wished that in the meantime he might die. No living being ever humbly laid his advantage at Monsieur Emmanuel's feet, or confidingly put it into his hands, that he spurned the trust or repulsed the repository. What might be his private pain or inward reluctance to leave Europe, what his calculations for his own future, none asked or knew or reported. All this was a blank to me. His conferences with his confessor I might guess. The part duty and religion were made to play in the persuasions used, I might conjecture. He was gone, and had made no sign. There my knowledge closed. With my head bent and my forehead resting on my hands, I sat amidst grouped tree stems and branching brushwood. Whatever talk passed amongst my neighbours, I might hear if I would. I was near enough. But for some time there was scarce motive to attend. They gossiped about the dresses, the music, the illuminations, the fine night. I listened to hear them say, "It is calm weather for his voyage. The Antigua, his ship, will sail prosperously." No such remark fell. Neither the Antigua, nor her course, nor her passenger were named. Perhaps the light chat scarcely interested old Madame Walravens more than it did me. She appeared restless, turning her head now to this side, now that, looking through the trees and among the crowd, as if expectant of an arrival and impatient of delay. "Où sont-ils? Pourquoi ne viennent-ils?" I heard her mutter more than once, and at last, as if determined to have an answer to her question, which hitherto none seemed to mind, she spoke aloud this phrase, a phrase brief enough, simple enough, but it sent a shock through me. "Messieurs et mesdames," said she, "où donc est Justine Marie?" Justine Marie! What was this? Justine Marie? The dead nun? Where was she? Why, in her grave, Madame Walravens. What can you want with her? You shall go to her, but she shall not come to you. Thus I should have answered, had the response lain with me. But nobody seemed to be of my mind. Nobody seemed surprised, startled, or at a loss. The quietest commonplace answer met the strange, the dead disturbing, the Witch of Endor query of the hunchback. "Justine Marie," said one, "is coming. She is in the kiosk. She will be here presently." Out of this question and reply sprang a change in the chat. Chat it still remained, easy, desultory, familiar gossip. Hint, allusion, comment went round the circle, but all so broken, so dependent on references to persons not named, or circumstances not defined, that listen as intently as I would, and I did listen, now, with a fated interest, I could make out no more than that some scheme was on foot, in which this ghostly Justine Marie, dead or alive, was concerned. This family junta seemed grasping at her somehow, for some reason. There seemed question of a marriage, of a fortune, for whom I could not quite make out. Perhaps for Victor Kent, perhaps for Joseph Emmanuel. Both were bachelors. Once I thought the hints and jests rained upon a young fair-haired foreigner of the party, whom they called Heinrich Müller. Amidst all the badinage, Madame Walravens still obtruded from time to time hoarse, cross-grained speeches, her impatience being diverted only by an implacable surveillance of Desiree, who could not stir but the old woman menaced her with her staff. "La, voilà!" suddenly cried one of the gentlemen. "Voilà Justine Marie qui arrive." This moment was for me peculiar. I called up to memory the pictured nun on the panel. Present to my mind was the sad love story. I saw in thought the vision of the garret, the apparition of the alley, the strange birth of the berceau. I underwent a presentiment of discovery, a strong conviction of coming disclosure. Ah! When imagination once runs riot, where do we stop? What winter trees so bare and branchless? What wayside, hedge-munching animals so humble that fancy, a passing cloud, and a struggling moonbeam will not clothe it in spirituality and make of it a phantom? With solemn force pressed on my heart the expectation of mystery breaking up. Hitherto I had seen the spectre only through a glass darkly. Now was I to behold it face to face. I leaned forward. I looked. "She comes!" cried Joseph Emmanuel. The circle opened as if opening to admit a new and welcome member. At this instant a torch chanced to be carried past. Its blaze aided the pale moon in doing justice to the crisis, in lighting to perfection the denouement pressing on. Surely those near me must have felt some little of the anxiety I felt, in degrees so unmeted. Of that group the coolest must have held his breath for a time. As for me, my life stood still. It is over. The moment and the nun are come. The crisis and the revelation are passed by. The flambeau glares, still within a yard, held up in a park-keeper's hand, its long eager tongue of flame almost licks the figure of the expected. There, where she stands full in my sight. What is she like? What does she wear? How does she look? Who is she? There are many masks in the park to-night, and as the hour wears late, so strange a feeling of revelry and mystery begins to spread abroad, that scarce would you discredit me, reader, were I to say that she is like the nun of the attic, that she wears black skirts and white head-clothes, that she looks the resurrection of the flesh, and that she is a risen ghost. All falsities, all figments. We will not deal in this gear. Let us be honest, and cut, as heretofore, from the homely web of truth. Homely, though, is an ill-chosen word. What I see is not precisely homely. A girl of Villette stands there, a girl fresh from her pensionnat. She is very comely, with the beauty indigenous to this country. She looks well nourished, fair, and fat of flesh. Her cheeks are round, her eyes good, her hair is abundant. She is handsomely dressed. She is not alone. Her escort consists of 3 persons, 2 being elderly. These she addresses as mon oncle and ma tante. She laughs, she chats, good-humoured, buxom, and blooming. She looks, at all points, the bourgeois belle. So much for Justine Marie. So much for ghosts and mystery. Not that this last was solved. This girl certainly is not my nun. What I saw in the garret and garden must have been taller by a span. We have looked at the city belle. We have cursorily glanced at the respectable old uncle and aunt. Have we a stray glance to give to the 3rd member of this company? Can we spare him a moment's notice? We ought to distinguish him so far, reader. He has claims on us. We do not now meet him for the first time. I clasped my hands very hard, and I drew my breath very deep. I held in the cry. I devoured the ejaculation. I forbade the start. I spoke, and I stirred no more than a stone. But I knew what I looked on. Through the dimness left in my eyes by many nights weeping, I knew him. They said he was to sail by the Antigua. Madame Beck said so. She lied. Or she had uttered what was once truth, and failed to contradict it when it became false. The Antigua was gone, and there stood Paul Emanuel. Was I glad? A huge load left me. Was it a fact to warrant joy? I know not. Ask first, what were the circumstances attendant on this respite? How far did this delay concern me? Were there not those whom it might touch more nearly? After all, who may this young girl, this Justine Marie, be? Not a stranger, reader. She is known to me by sight. She visits at the Rue Fossette. She is often of Madame Beck's Sunday parties. She is a relation of both the Becks and Walravens. She derives her baptismal name from the sainted nun who would have been her aunt had she lived. Her patronymic is Servieux. She is an heiress and an orphan, and Monsieur Emmanuel is her guardian. Some say her godfather. The family junta wish this heiress to be married to one of their band. Which is it? Vital question, which is it? I felt very glad now that the drug administered in the sweet draught had filled me with a possession which made bed and chamber intolerable. I always, through my whole life, liked to penetrate to the real truth. I like seeking the goddess in her temple, and handling the veil, and daring the dread glance. O Titaness among deities! The covered outline of thine aspect sickens often through its uncertainty, but define to us one trait, show us one lineament, clear in awful sincerity. We may gasp in untold terror, but with that gasp we drink in a breath of thy divinity. Our heart shakes, and its currents sway like rivers lifted by earthquake, but we have swallowed strength. To see and know the worst is to take from fear her main advantage. End of section 69. Recording by Leanne Fortune.